All right, buckle up everyone, because today we're diving headfirst into some seriously juicy news.
Oh yeah, this is big.
We're talking Nvidia's next-gen GPUs, the RTX 5000 series.
You know it. The rumor mill's been churning.
Exactly. And you know our listeners, they're always on the lookout for that upgrade, that next level of PC gaming goodness.
Yeah, this is the good stuff.
It is. So we've got two sources feeding our deep dive today. A Reddit thread, which, let me tell you, is just exploding with hype.
Oh, those Reddit threads can be wild.
Wild's an understatement. And then we've got this in-depth article from WCFF Tech, really digging into the nitty-gritty.
Awesome. Love those guys. They really get into the details.
They do. So let's jump right in, shall we? First up, the RTX 5080.
Ah, yes. This is where things get interesting.
Interesting indeed. Well, WCFF Tech is reporting that the 5080 is going to be the first one out the gate.
Which is a bit of a surprise.
Total curveball. Usually Nvidia kicks things off with their flagship, that 90 series card, right?
Right, traditionally, yeah.
Yeah.
They go top down.
But this time, it's the 5080 leading the charge, possibly launching as early as mid-January 2025.
Right after its grand debut at CES.
Makes you wonder what's going on over at Nvidia HQ, huh?
I think they're trying to be strategic. Remember how successful the RTX 4090 was?
Oh yeah, that was a beast of a card. Everyone wanted it.
Exactly, while the 4080 kind of...
Kind of lagged behind, yeah. Sales weren't as strong.
So maybe Nvidia is thinking, hey, let's tap into that high-end market right away.
Get those early adopters who are always hungry for the latest and greatest.
Exactly.
It's a bold move for sure.
Very bold. But don't worry, the 5090 isn't too far behind.
Oh, good. The 5090, that's the one everyone's really drooling over.
It
right?
is. WCCF Tech says it should follow the 5080 pretty quickly. Maybe by the end of January or mid-February 2025 at the latest.
So just a tiny bit of extra waiting for those who want the absolute best.
Yep, that's right. And the Reddit thread is buzzing, let me tell you.
I bet. Everyone's speculating about performance features.
And of course, the price tag.
Oh, yeah. How much is this beast gonna cost?
Some folks on Reddit are already saying they're willing to pay a premium for the 5090.
Yeah, there's always that group, the money is no object crowd.
Totally. But there's also a lot of talk about VRAM.
VRAM, huh? What's the buzz there?
Well, the 5080 is rumored to have 16 RAM of VRAM.
Okay, that's a decent amount, right?
Yeah, not bad. But the 5090, supposedly packing a whopping 32 GB.
Whoa, double the VRAM. That's a big difference.
And that's what's sparking the debate. Some users are saying 16 GB just isn't enough for a high-end card in 2025.
I see. Especially with games becoming more and more demanding.
Right. Higher resolutions, more detailed textures, all that good stuff. It eats up VRAM.
So they're worried about bottlenecks that the 5080 might struggle to keep up?
Exactly. Especially if you're planning to game at 4K resolution for the next few years. Get the most out of your investment.
Yeah, it makes sense. You don't want to spend a ton of money on a card that becomes obsolete too quickly.
Right. Nobody wants that. So it's definitely something to consider.
It's interesting. All this talk about VRAM has me thinking.
Yeah.
Is NVIDIA maybe banking on their DLSS technology to kind of compensate for that lower VRAM on the 5080?
DLSS. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's already doing amazing things, right?
It is, upscaling the image, making it look almost as good as native 4K, but without needing as much VRAM.
Exactly. So maybe NVIDIA is thinking, hey, even with 16 GB, you can still get a fantastic 4K experience thanks to DLSS.
That's a pretty clever strategy if that's what they're doing.
It is, but it also depends on how much faith you put in DLSS, right?
True. Some people swear by it. Others are still a bit skeptical.
Yeah, I get that. And then there's always the possibility of, well,
of what?
a Super or a T variant of the 5080 down the line.
Oh, you're thinking like what they did with the 4000 series.
Exactly. Release a slightly beefed up version later on, maybe with 24 GB of VRAM.
That would throw a wrench in some people's plans.
It would, especially for those who jumped on the 5080 right away.
So for our listeners out there, it's a gamble, right?
Kind of, yeah. Do you go for the 5080 now or wait and see what happens?
Tough choices, especially with AMD and Intel lurking in the shadows.
Oh yeah, we can't forget about them.
What do you think they're cooking up?
Well, WCCF Tech seems to think they might be focusing more on the mainstream market this time around.
Really? Interesting. So maybe not going head-to-head with NVIDIA in the high-end space.
Possibly not. Maybe they're seeing an opportunity to capture market share with more affordable cards.
Makes sense. Especially with the success of that Arc B580.
Right. That was a surprise hit.
It was. Solid performance at a really good price.
Exactly. So maybe AMD and Intel are thinking, hey, let NVIDIA have the top tier. We'll focus on giving gamers more bang for their buck.
I mean, that's a pretty smart strategy, right?
It is, especially in this economy. People are being more careful with their spending.
And you know who loves to take advantage of situations like this?
Oh, no, don't tell me.
The scalpers.
Yeah. They're probably already rubbing their hands together.
The Reddit thread is full of people worrying about them.
I bet. I mean, these cards are in high demand, not just for gaming.
Oh, yeah, true. AI development, all that stuff.
Exactly. So the scalpers are probably seeing dollar signs.
It's frustrating, you know. Gamers just want to get their hands on the latest tech without having to pay exorbitant prices.
I hear you. It's not fair.
But hey, there is a little bit of good news on that front.
Really?
Yeah. Some folks on Reddit mentioned that Nvidia has been ramping up their production capacity.
Oh, that's good to hear. Maybe that'll help keep supply up and prices down.
We can only hope.
Fingers crossed.
All right, so we've talked about the 5080, the 5090, the VRAM debate, the potential competition. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to performance, right?
Absolutely. What are these cards capable of?
And how do they stack up against the previous generation? The WSTFX article had some pretty juicy numbers.
They did. They're predicting some significant performance gains for both the 5080 and the 5090.
Significant meaning?
We're talking potentially 25% to 33% faster than the 4000 series.
Whoa. If those numbers hold up, that's a huge leap forward.
It is. But of course, we'll have to wait for the official benchmarks to really know for sure.
Always a grain of salt with those early projections, right?
Real-world performance can vary.
But still, exciting stuff. Imagine the games we'll be able to play, the visuals we'll be able to experience.
It's going to be mind-blowing.
All right, so let's pause here for a second and think about all this from our listeners' perspective. It's a lot to take in, right?
It is. A lot of moving parts, a lot of unknowns.
Okay, so we've talked about all these different aspects of the RTX 5000 series, but what does it all actually mean for our listeners? Like, what should they be thinking about right now?
Yeah, good point. It's easy to get lost in the technical details, but ultimately it comes down to making a decision, right?
Right. To upgrade or not to upgrade? That is the question.
Exactly. And there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It really depends on your individual needs and priorities as a gamer.
So let's break it down. Let's say you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, I'm ready for a new GPU. What are the key things to consider?
Well, first off, think about your budget.
Always a good starting point.
Yeah, how much are you willing to spend? Because these high-end cards are not going to be cheap.
Especially at launch.
Right. So figure out your price range and then start looking at the cards that fit within that budget.
Okay, so budget's step one. What's next?
Next, think about what kind of games you play and what resolution you play at.
So if you're mostly playing esports titles at 1080p, you probably don't need a top-of-the-line 5090.
Exactly. A 5070 or maybe even a 5060 would probably be more than enough for that.
But if you're aiming for 4K gaming with all the bells and whistles...
then you're going to want something more powerful, like the 5080 or the 5090.
Right, and that's where the VRAM debate comes back into play.
Exactly. If you're going for 4K, you really need to think about that VRAM. Do you trust DLSS to do its magic? Or do you want to play it safe and go for the card with more VRAM?
Tough choices. And then, of course, there's always the option of waiting.
Yes, the waiting game.
Maybe a Super or a Ti variant comes out later with more VRAM. Or maybe AMD and Intel release something amazing that undercuts Nvidia on price.
You never know. The tech world moves fast.
It does. So yeah, our advice to listeners is do your research, weigh your options carefully, and don't feel pressured to jump on the hype train right away.
Exactly. There's no rush.
And one more thing to keep in mind.
What's that?
We've talked a lot about gaming, but these GPUs are more than just gaming machines.
Oh, absolutely.
They're powering advancements in AI, scientific research, all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah, they're like the engines of innovation.
So when you're thinking about upgrading, it's not just about getting better graphics in your games.
It's about investing in technology that's pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our deep dive into NVIDIA's RTX 5000 series. Lots to digest, lots to be excited about, and maybe a few things to be cautious of. As always, we appreciate you joining us for this journey into the world of PC hardware.
It's always a pleasure to dive into these topics with you.
Likewise. And to all our listeners out there, keep those frames high, stay curious, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.